Okay, so this is the second day. We're on section 2.4. Just to let you know, Friday we're going to have a quiz, and it's going to be on 2.3 and 2.4. 2.3 is just slope, right? If you have a line, you could count how much you rise and how much you run. That'll be the slope. Or I could give you two coordinates, and you could find the slope using the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then we have section 2.4. This is the bigger part of the quiz this Friday. And section 2.4 is all about writing equations, right? Writing slope-intercept form equations and point-slope form equations. And I'll specifically ask you for each of those, right? I'll be like, here are 2 points, write the equation in slope-intercept form, or write the equation in point-slope form. In addition to that, we also need to know about parallel lines and perpendicular lines. And we should know that parallel lines from yesterday, parallel lines have the same exact slope, and perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So we did this little exercise yesterday where we decided if it had a parallel, if the lines were parallel or perpendicular, by making sure that the equation was either in slope-intercept form or maybe point-slope form. That way you could identify your slopes. Right here the slope is 1/2. Right here the slope is -2. Right here the slope is 1/3. And then you could compare. If they're exactly the same slope, then it's slope-intercept. That's parallel. And if they're opposite reciprocal slopes, then they are perpendicular. So we still need this final part of the notes. Let's continue right now. And you will definitely have these types of questions on the quiz Friday, okay? We're going to be writing equations, and I give you information about the line that you have that you want to write an equation of. So it says write an equation in slope-intercept form. What's slope-intercept form again? Y equals mx plus b. Okay, so we want it to look like this, okay, at the end of it all. And what do they give us here? They tell us that our line passes through this point, right, which is an x and a y value. And they tell us that it's perpendicular to this other line, okay? So what do they give us? A point and they give you another line. Okay, so let's think about this. They're telling us that the line that they're giving us is going to be perpendicular to the one that we want to write. So indirectly, they are giving us the slope, right? Because if our line that we're going to write is perpendicular to this guy, then we know that our slope is going to be what? It's going to be an opposite reciprocal value of -2. Okay, so indirectly they are telling us that our slope is positive 1/2. Okay, now how did I get that? Well, if they tell you perpendicular, it's not going to be the same slope. It's going to be opposite reciprocal. So if you change the sign, and the 2 is originally over 1, if there's no fraction, you could put it over 1, and then you change the sign, and then you flip it, which will become positive 1/2. So indirectly, they do give you your slope, and they do give you your point for 2. So now that we clearly see our slope and our point, what form is the easiest to write it in? Is it slope-intercept or point-slope? Point-slope. Even though they're not asking for it in point-slope, it's really easy to write it in point-slope. So let's do exactly that. And point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. There's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And whenever you do plug in, I recommend writing what's in black right there. Y minus y1, leave it blank, equals m, leave it blank, times x minus x1, leave it blank. So I'm going to plug in my x1, y1 value. What's my y1 value that goes right here? 2. All right, so let's put that 2 right there. What's my m value that goes in front of the parenthesis? Positive 1/2. Okay. And what's my x1 value? 4. Perfect. So we have our point-slope form equation of the line that passes through this point and is perpendicular to this other line. Now, we don't even care about this other line anymore. All we used it for was to find our slope indirectly, which was an opposite reciprocal slope of this guy. But anyway, they're not asking us to leave it in point-slope form. And on the quiz Friday, I might ask you, leave it in point-slope form. And if I do ask you, leave it in point-slope form, you write this and you're done 100%. Move on to the next question. But right here on this these instructions, it says write it in slope-intercept. So I need to change it to y equals mx plus b. Obviously, y equals mx plus b does not have parentheses. So I need to get rid of those parentheses. What do? Distribute. Okay, so let me distribute 1/2 times x. Well, that'll be 1/2 x. Distribute 1/2 times -4. What's that going to be? -2. Okay, and then bring down the equal sign, bring down the y minus 2, and it's almost in slope-intercept form. All I have to do now is what? Add 2 to both sides. Plus 2 here, plus 2 over here, and it happens to cancel out as well. So my slope-intercept form equation is y equals 1/2 x. If you want, you could put a plus 0 because the b value is 0, but you don't have to put the plus 0. You could just leave it y equals 1/2 x, right? So that is slope-intercept form. Any questions? Yes? How come I switched the sign when I flipped it? Okay, so good question, right? Now, it all depends on what information they're giving you. Right here it said perpendicular, right? Now let's say it would have said parallel. Let's say our line is parallel to the one that they give us. Then we know parallel lines have the same exact slope, right? So then it would be, oh, my slope is -2, just like this one is, right? But they don't say parallel, they say perpendicular. So what do we know about perpendicular lines from yesterday's notes? Or you could even switch over to, where is it at? Right here. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal m values. That means change the sign and flip the fraction. So you just asked me, why do we change the sign? Because that's what we do when we find the perpendicular slope. You change the sign and flip the fraction. If you don't do both, then you don't have a perpendicular slope. You don't have perpendicular lines. Let's look at this next one right here. Write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line passing through -6 and -6 and is parallel to this guy. Okay, so what does this tell you? Parallel. It's the same slope. So indirectly, they do give us a slope. What's our slope?
4/3.
It's 4/3. It's the same exact slope as this guy. Why is it the same? Because they tell us it's parallel. I don't need this equation anymore. For all I care, I could just scratch it out. I already got what I needed from it, right? I'm not going to use it anymore. I got my slope, 4/3, and you don't have to scratch it out. I don't recommend it, but you're not going to use it anymore. Your slope is 4/3, and what else do they give us? They give us a point, x1, y1, so we could easily do point-slope form, okay? Now, right here on the instructions, I do say write it in slope-intercept, but on the quiz, I might tell you leave it in point-slope form. And on some of them, I'll ask you for slope-intercept. But right here, we're going to go point-slope because it's the easiest. Point-slope is y minus y1 equals m, parentheses, x minus x1. So y minus y1 equals m, parentheses, x minus x1. And when you use it, leave the blank spots. And then plug in. Your y1 value is -6. Your m value, we said, was parallel, which is the same exact slope as the one they gave us, which was 4/3. And the x1 value is also -6. Don't forget to change your signs from minus to plus. So since they're asking for slope-intercept form, we need to get y by itself. We need to get rid of those parentheses. Let's distribute, right? 4/3 times x, that's just 4/3 x. 4/3 times 6. Okay, and just to explain to everybody, if you're confused about multiplying a fraction times a number, just put that number over 1 if you want, and multiply the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. So if I do go 4 times 6, let me just do this on the side over here. 4 times 6 is 24, and then if I do the bottom, the 3 times the 1, that would give me 3, right? So it would technically be over 3. And then you could look at the fraction, 24 over 3, 24 divided by 3 is 8. So we do have plus 8 right there. And we still have the equal sign. We still have the y plus 6. After distributing, getting rid of the parentheses, what do we need to do next to get it in slope-intercept form? Subtract the 6. There you go. Subtract 6, and we are done. Y equals 4/3 x plus 2. That's my equation in slope-intercept form. write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line that has a slope of -2 and the x-intercept at 2. This one's really tricky. People mess up on this. Okay? They want slope-intercept form that's y equals mx plus b. What do they give us? Give us a slope. A slope is -2. I could write this down on the side. M equals -2. And what else do they give us? The x-intercept. Do they give us the b value? No. Right? A lot of people think, oh, the b value is 2 because they're telling us that the intercept is 2. But it's not a y-intercept, it's an x-intercept. And we know that the b value represents the y-intercept, not the x. So what does that mean? On a graph, we need to visualize this. We know that our line has a slope of -2. From left to right, it's going to go like down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. But besides that, we know that this line is going to cross the x-axis at the location of 2. Is everybody with me? So where would that coordinate be? The location of 2 on the x-axis. What is that actual coordinate? So we know it crosses right here. What is that coordinate? That's 2, 0. So the actual point, the point is 2, 0. So you got to think about what information they're really giving you, right? If they do give you the y-intercept, well then you're good. You know the slope, you know the y-intercept. You could write in y equals mx plus b. But they didn't give us the y-intercept. They gave us the x-intercept. So you got to think, well, what is that x-intercept really? It's really a coordinate, an x and y value. So I really have a point. So if I have a point and I have a slope, what could I write it in? What form? Point-slope form. So point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. Let me actually plug it in. Y minus y1. y1 is 0 if we're looking at the point that we found from the x-intercept. And the m value is -2. And the x1 value is +2. So you just put a 2 right there. So this is our equation in point-slope form, but we want it in slope-intercept form because they're asking for it in slope-intercept form. So let's get rid of the parentheses by distributing the -2. You'll have -2x with a +4. The equal sign comes down. And the y take away 0, that's simply y. And believe it or not, we're done. That is a slope-intercept form equation. Y equals -2x plus 4. So you got to think about the information that they give you, right? Sometimes they will give you a point and a slope, and you'll be able to plug it into point-slope form. Sometimes they will give you a slope and a y-intercept, and you'll just be able to plug it right into y equals mx plus b. Sometimes they tell you the slope indirectly by telling you that your line is perpendicular to this line, or your line is parallel to that line. Or sometimes they indirectly give you a point, the way they did here, by telling you that you have an x-intercept at a certain location. You got to think about that coordinate, that location. Then you'll have the point and the slope that they give you. You'll be able to plug it into point-slope form. Let's go to the last one here. Write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line that is parallel to that guy and has an x-intercept at 4. So what do they give us? They indirectly give us a point, and they indirectly also give us our slope. Okay, so they're telling us that our line is going to be parallel to this guy. So our slope is going to be the same exact slope as that guy right there. So I'm going to write down my slope right here. M equals, it's going to be the same thing. M equals -3. I don't even have to look at this guy anymore. I could cross it out if I want. I'm not going to, but M is -3. Okay, and it says, and it has an x-intercept at 4. That's not the b value. The b value is the y-intercept. Now, sometimes I will give you the y-intercept, which is a b value, but this is not a b value. This is the x-intercept. So they're indirectly giving us the point. What is the point of that location? What's the coordinate of the x-axis at 4? What's that coordinate? What's the point? Point is 4, 0. So indirectly, they gave us a point. We just had to think about it. Indirectly, they gave us a slope. We just had to think about it. And of course, know the definition of parallel. And now we could actually plug it into point-slope form. So point-slope form, y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. The y1 value is 0. The m is -3. The x1 value is 4. If you want to change it to slope-intercept form because they ask us to, all you got to do is distribute. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. Bring down that equal sign, and y take away 0 is simply y. There it is. Y equals mx plus b. We are done. So you do have to think on this section. The majority of the Quiz Friday will come from these notes and from the single worksheet that you're about to receive. Okay, so make sure you do that worksheet, you understand it, and make sure you also review this video because some of these questions might pop out exactly the way they are on the Quiz Friday.